Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, staring at the main screen with wide eyes. After 3 years of deep space exploration, they had finally found what they were looking for. The signal was clear, strong, and definitely not human. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked his communications officer, Ryan Torres. The young man had been working on the signal for the past 6 hours, his face glowing from the computer screens around him. "Yes, sir," Ryan said, his voice shaking with excitement. "It's definitely artificial. Someone is trying to talk to us." Commander Lisa Banks moved closer to look at the data streaming across the screens. As the ship's expert on alien life, she had dreamed of this moment her entire career. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. But the pattern is clear. They're using mathematics and basic physics concepts. It's like they're trying to teach us their language." Dr. Amanda Foster, the chief scientist, was already running calculations on her tablet. "The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's about 1/200 light years from Earth. If they're responding to our radio signals, they must have incredibly advanced technology." Jake felt his heart racing. This was it. First contact with an alien civilization. Everything humanity had wondered about for centuries was about to be answered. "How long until we can communicate with them?" "Give me 12 hours, Ryan said. "Maybe less if Dr. Banks can help with the translation." Lisa nodded eagerly. "I've been studying communication patterns my whole life. This is what I trained for." The next few hours passed slowly. The entire crew was on edge, knowing they were part of something historic. Jake walked through the ship, checking on his people. Everyone was excited but nervous. They all knew that first contact could change everything for humanity. Dr. Foster worked with her team to analyze every detail of the alien signal. "They're being very careful," she told Jake during one of his visits to the science lab. "The message is designed to be understood by any intelligent species. It's actually quite beautiful." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Look at this pattern." Amanda showed him her screen. "They start with prime numbers, then move to basic chemistry, then to physics. It's like a universal language based on the laws of nature. Whoever sent this is very smart and very patient." Meanwhile, Lisa and Ryan worked together to decode the actual message hidden in the mathematical patterns. As the hours passed, they began to understand more and more of the alien language. "Captain," Ryan called over the ship's communication system, "you need to see this." Jake hurried back to the bridge. Lisa was standing next to Ryan, both of them looking amazed and slightly worried. "What is it?" Jake asked. "We've translated part of the message," Lisa said. "Captain, they know about us. They've been watching Earth." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Watching us? For how long?" Ryan pulled up the translated text on the main screen. "According to this, they detected our radio signals about 50 years ago. They've been studying our broadcasts ever since. They call themselves the Zelani Collective," Lisa continued. "It's not just one species. It's an alliance of 12 different alien races living in peace across 3 star systems." Dr. Foster joined them on the bridge, having heard the announcement. 12 species working together? That's incredible." "It gets better," Ryan said, scrolling through more translated text. "They want to meet us. They're inviting humanity to join their collective as what they call junior members." Jake stared at the message, trying to process what he was hearing. "They want us to join them? Just like that?" "It seems they've done this before," Lisa explained. "When they find a new intelligent species, they invite them to join their peaceful alliance. They share technology, knowledge, and resources. This could solve every problem Earth has," Amanda said quietly. "Energy, disease, poverty, climate change. If they're willing to share their technology." Jake nodded, but something bothered him about how easy this seemed. "What's the catch? Nobody offers something this good without wanting something in return." Lisa looked at the message again. "Actually, they don't seem to want anything from us except our friendship. They describe themselves as a peaceful collective that believes in harmony between all intelligent life. They're even suggesting a meeting place," Ryan added. "A planet in the Kepler 442 system that they use for first contact situations. They call it a neutral world." Dr. Foster was already working on her tablet again. "Captain, we need to contact Earth immediately. This decision is too big for us to make alone, Jake agreed. Within an hour, they had sent a quantum communication burst back to Earth explaining everything they had discovered. The response came back faster than expected. Captain Morrison, came the voice of Admiral Gary Nelson from Earth Command. You and your crew have just made the most important discovery in human history. We're sending Ambassador Peter Clark and a full diplomatic team to your location. They'll arrive in 2 weeks. What are our orders until then? Jake asked. Keep communicating with the aliens. Learn everything you can about them and their collective, but be careful what you tell them about us. We don't know their real intentions yet. As the days passed, the communication between the Discovery and the Zilani became more frequent and detailed. The aliens seemed genuinely excited to meet humanity. They shared information about their technology, their worlds, and their peaceful way of life. But the more Jake learned about the Zilani, the more worried he became. These aliens had never experienced war the way humans understood it. Their conflicts were small and quickly resolved through talking and compromise. They had no standing armies, no weapons of mass destruction, and no concept of total warfare. They seem almost innocent, Lisa said during one of their daily briefings. Like children who've never seen real violence. Dr. Foster nodded. Their entire civilization is built on cooperation and trust. It's beautiful, but it also makes me wonder how they've survived for so long. Jake stared out at the stars, thinking about Earth's long history of conflict and competition. Humanity had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through millions of years of struggle. These aliens seemed to have skipped that entire process. Sir? Ryan interrupted his thoughts. The aliens are asking about our arrival time. They want to prepare a welcome ceremony. Jake made his decision. Tell them we'll meet them at their neutral world in 3 weeks, and Ryan? Yes, sir. Don't mention anything about our military capabilities yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. As the Discovery changed course toward the meeting point, none of them realized they were about to discover something that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity was about to learn that sometimes being the most dangerous species in the galaxy wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The planet Kepler 442b looked like something from a dream. Ambassador Peter Clark stood at the observation deck of the shuttle as they descended through the atmosphere. The world below was covered in purple forests and crystal blue lakes. Strange. Floating islands drifted through the sky like giant lily pads. It's beautiful, said Dr. Helen Wright, the team's expert on alien cultures. She pressed her face against the window, trying to see everything at once. I've never seen anything like it. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Baker was less impressed with the scenery. As head of security for the diplomatic mission, he was more interested in potential threats. No cities, no industrial areas, no military installations. Where does everyone live? Underground, maybe? Suggested Captain Morrison, who had joined the diplomatic team for the historic meeting. Or perhaps they don't build the same way we do. Their shuttle landed on a smooth platform that seemed to be made of living crystal. As they stepped outside, the air felt warm and smelled like flowers. In the distance, they could see structures that looked more grown than built, twisting up from the ground like enormous trees. Welcome, friends from Earth, came a voice from nearby. The humans turned to see their first alien in person. The creature looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a butterfly. It stood about 7 feet tall on 4 thin legs with 2 arms that ended in delicate hands. Its wings shimmered with colors that had no names. When it spoke, the words came from a small device hanging around its neck. I am Klix Tor of the Vorthak people, the alien said. We are honored to meet you. Ambassador Clark stepped forward, trying to hide his amazement. I am Peter Clark, speaking for the people of Earth. We are honored to be here. More aliens appeared from the strange buildings. There was a creature that looked like a living puddle of water with tentacles, another that seemed to be made of moving crystals, and several others that defied easy description. All of them carried the same translation devices. Please, follow us, said Klix Tor. The Council is eager to meet you. As they walked through the alien settlement, Lieutenant Colonel Baker noticed something odd. Where are your guards? He asked Klix Tor. The alien's head tilted in confusion. Guards? I do not understand this word. Baker tried again. Security. Protection. Soldiers. Ah. Clixtor seemed to understand. You mean the peacekeepers. They are here, but they do not carry weapons as you might know them. Baker looked around and finally spotted what the alien meant. Several creatures were walking around the area, wearing clothes that were slightly different from the others, but instead of guns or swords, they carried devices that looked more like medical equipment. What do those do? Baker asked, pointing at one of the devices. They calm angry minds, Clixtor explained. If someone becomes upset or confused, the peacekeepers can help them feel better. Dr. Wright overheard this conversation and found it fascinating. You mean your police don't arrest people? Arrest? Another word that needed explanation. After several minutes of discussion, the aliens finally understood what she meant. They seemed shocked by the concept. Why would we lock someone away? Asked a crystal creature that had introduced itself as Gel 9. If someone does wrong, we help them understand why it was wrong, then they choose not to do it again. But what if they don't want to change? Dr. Wright asked. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Clixtor finally answered. Why would someone choose to keep doing wrong when they understand it hurts others? The human delegation was led to a large building that curved up from the ground like a massive flower. Inside, they found the Zilani Council waiting for them. 12 different species sat in a circle, each one stranger than the last. Ambassador Clark presented gifts from Earth, music recordings, art books, and samples of human literature. The aliens were delighted, especially with the music. Your species creates such beautiful sounds, said a creature that looked like a tree with eyes. We would love to learn more about human art. We have prepared gifts for you as well, said Gel 9. The crystal being gestured to several devices placed around the room. These are samples of our technology, healing tools, communication devices, and energy generators. Dr. Wright examined one of the healing tools. It was incredibly advanced, able to repair damaged tissue at the cellular level. The energy generator was even more impressive, somehow drawing power directly from space itself. This technology could solve every problem we have on Earth, she whispered to Ambassador Clark. There is one requirement for joining our collective, said Clixtor. All member species must agree to follow the Codex of Civilized Conduct. The alien produced a crystalline tablet covered in symbols. The translation device worked slowly to convert the text into English. No permanent harm to any sentient being, read Ambassador Clark. No destruction of inhabited worlds. No weapons designed to kill. All conflicts must be resolved through peaceful discussion. Lieutenant Colonel Baker felt his blood run cold. What do you mean by weapons designed to kill? Tools made only to end life, explained Gel 9. Such things are considered the greatest evil in our society. No civilized species would create such horrors. Baker looked at Ambassador Clark, who was clearly struggling with how to respond. Every human soldier carried weapons designed to kill. Every nation on Earth had armies equipped with lethal weapons. What if someone attacks you? Baker asked. What if they don't want to talk? The aliens looked confused again. But why would anyone attack? What would be the purpose? To take your resources, to control your territory, to force you to do what they want, Baker explained. The council members whispered among themselves in their various languages. They seemed deeply troubled by these concepts. Has this happened to humans? Asked the tree-like creature. Ambassador Clark hesitated. How could he explain thousands of years of human warfare to beings who had apparently never experienced it? Sometimes, he said carefully. In our past, different groups of humans have fought each other. But surely you have moved beyond such primitive behavior? Asked Clixtor hopefully. Before Clark could answer, Captain Morrison's communication device beeped. It was an urgent message from Earth. Excuse me, Morrison said, stepping away to read the message. When he returned, his face was pale. Ambassador, he said quietly. We need to talk. Privately. Clark apologized to the aliens and stepped aside. With his team, Morrison showed them the message. There's been an incident in the South China Sea, Morrison whispered. 2 naval fleets are facing off. Earth Command wants to know if our new alien friends can help mediate. Lieutenant Colonel. Baker almost laughed but caught himself. Sir, these aliens don't even understand the concept of warfare. They think their worst weapons are devices that make people feel calm. Dr. Wright was studying the alien council members who were waiting patiently for the humans to return. They're so innocent, she said. They've built this entire civilization on trust and cooperation. They have no idea what humans are really capable of. Ambassador Clark looked back at the aliens, then at his team. For the first time since arriving, he wondered if humanity was making a terrible mistake. These creatures lived in a paradise of peace, completely unaware that the galaxy might contain species like humans. What do we tell them? He asked. The truth, said Baker. Eventually. But maybe we should learn more about them first. Clark nodded and returned to the council. Forgive the interruption. We would be honored to learn more about your codex. As the meeting continued, none of the humans noticed the small recording devices hidden throughout the room. The Zilani were peaceful, but they were not naive. They had been studying human radio transmissions for 50 years, and some of what they had learned was very disturbing. The real test was just beginning. Dr. Amanda Foster stood in front of the holographic projector, her hands shaking slightly. The Zilani Council had requested a presentation about human culture and history. It seemed like such a simple request, but Amanda was beginning to realize how complicated it would be. Are you sure about this? Whispered Ambassador Clark. Maybe we should start with something safer. Art, music, literature. They specifically asked about our historical development, Amanda replied. They want to understand how human civilization grew. I've prepared what I think are the most educational examples. The alien council members settled into their places. Their various forms of eyes focused on the humans with obvious excitement. Clixtor's wings fluttered with anticipation. We are eager to learn about your people's journey to the stars, said Gel 9, the crystal being's voice ringing like wine chimes. Amanda activated the projector. The first hologram showed early humans living in caves hunting animals with simple spears. This is how humans lived thousands of years ago, Amanda explained. We had to compete with dangerous animals for food and shelter. The aliens leaned forward with interest. This seemed normal enough to them. Over time, humans learned to work together in larger groups. Amanda continued. The hologram changed to show early farming communities. We built towns and cities, developed writing and mathematics. Beautiful, whispered the tree-like being called Root Singer. Very similar to how our own peoples developed. Amanda smiled, feeling more confident. She moved to the next section. But humans also had to defend themselves from other groups who wanted to take their resources. The hologram showed medieval knights in armor, carrying swords and shields. The aliens watched with curiosity as the knights fought off attackers trying to raid a village. I do not understand, said Clixtor. Why did these other humans attack the village? They wanted the food and supplies the villagers had, Amanda explained. So the villagers had to learn to fight back. Murmurs spread through the alien council. Dr. Wright, who was watching from the side, noticed that several aliens seemed confused rather than concerned. Amanda moved to her next example. Here is a battle from what we call the medieval period. The hologram showed the Battle of Hastings with thousands of armored soldiers fighting with swords, axes, and arrows. The reaction was immediate. Several aliens made sounds that the translators couldn't convert. The water-like creature called Flow Deep actually pulled back from the projection. How many? Asked Rootsinger, their voice filled with something that might have been horror. About 15,000 soldiers fought in this battle, Amanda said, not understanding the aliens' distress. 15,000 beings chose to hurt each other? Gel-9's crystal form was changing colors rapidly. At the same time? By choice? Ambassador Clark stepped forward, sensing the growing tension. This was a long time ago. Humans have learned better ways to solve problems since then. Show. Us, demanded Clixtor. Show us how humans solve problems now. Amanda hesitated, then moved to her next prepared section. She had chosen the American Civil War. thinking it showed how humans could fight for noble causes like ending slavery. The hologram showed the Battle of Gettysburg. Thousands of soldiers in blue and gray uniforms fired rifles at each other across open fields. Cannons boomed, sending explosions into the ranks of charging men. This time, one of the aliens actually collapsed. The insectoid creature fell to the ground, its translator device making high-pitched sounds of distress. "Stop," said Flowdeep, their watery form rippling with agitation. "Please, stop this horror." But Amanda, not understanding how badly she was misjudging her audience, continued. This war was fought to free enslaved people. The good humans won. Good humans? Clixtor's voice was barely a whisper. You call this good? Well, yes. They were fighting against slavery, Amanda explained. Sometimes fighting is necessary to protect innocent people. The Alien Council erupted in their various forms of distressed communication. Several more aliens backed away from the hologram. Dr. Wright rushed forward. Amanda, stop the presentation. But Amanda had one more section prepared, one she thought would surely impress the aliens with human progress. Let me show you how humans fought evil in our most recent major war. The hologram changed to show World War II. Images of D-Day filled the air. Thousands of ships approaching the beach, planes dropping bombs, soldiers charging through machine gun fire. The alien called Root Singer made a sound like breaking wood and fell over. Flowdeep's watery form began to boil. Clixtor's wings folded tightly against their body as they curled into a ball. Turn it off, shouted Ambassador Clark. But it was too late. The hologram continued, showing tanks rolling through destroyed cities, aerial bombing raids, and finally the mushroom cloud of the atomic bomb. The silence that followed was deafening. Half of the Alien Council members had retreated to the far side of the room. The others stared at the humans with what could only be described as terror. Finally, Gel-9 spoke, their crystal form now a dull gray color. You destroyed an entire city? With one weapon? Amanda realized her mistake too late. It ended the war faster. It actually saved lives. Flowdeep's voice was like a scream. You murdered hundreds of thousands of beings with a single attack, and you call this saving lives? Lieutenant Colonel Baker stepped forward, trying to help. That was over 80 years ago. We've learned from our mistakes. Learned? Clixtor uncurled slowly. What have you learned? We've built systems to prevent such wars, Baker explained. We have international laws, peace treaties, organizations that work to solve conflicts without fighting. Show us these weapons you have now, demanded Rootsinger, their voice filled with dread. Ambassador Clark tried to change the subject. Perhaps we should discuss more positive aspects of human culture. Show us, repeated Gel-9. We must know what we are dealing with. Baker looked at Clark, who nodded reluctantly. We have approximately 10,000 nuclear weapons on Earth, Baker said quietly. The translator devices struggled with the number. When they finally converted it, several aliens made sounds of pure horror. 10,000? Whispered Flowdeep. 10,000 weapons that can destroy cities? Some of them can destroy much more than cities, Baker admitted. But we only keep them to prevent other humans from using theirs. It's called deterrence. You point city-destroying weapons at your own species? Clixtor's voice was barely audible. To prevent them from using city-destroying weapons? Dr. Wright watched the aliens' reactions with growing alarm. These beings had never conceived of warfare on such a scale. Their entire understanding of conflict was limited to small disagreements between individuals. We also have conventional military forces, Baker continued, not realizing he was making things worse. Armies, navies, air forces. Every nation on Earth maintains some form of military. Every group of humans has warriors, asked Rootsinger. Yes, for protection, Baker explained. Protection from what? From other humans. The Alien Council fell silent again. Finally, Gel-9 spoke. Let us understand this correctly. Every group of humans maintains warriors to fight other groups of humans. You have built weapons that can destroy entire worlds, and you consider this normal? Ambassador Clark tried desperately to explain. It sounds worse than it is. Most humans live peaceful lives. We have families, we create art, we explore space like you do. But you do all of this while preparing to kill each other, said Clixtor. We prepare to defend ourselves, Clark corrected, with weapons designed to kill. Sometimes, yes. The aliens began talking among themselves in their own languages. The translators couldn't keep up with the rapid, frightened conversations. Finally, Flo Deep addressed the humans again. We must discuss this privately. Please wait outside. As the human delegation left the council chamber, Dr. Wright grabbed Amanda's arm. Did you see their faces? They're terrified of us. I was just showing them our history, Amanda protested. Every species must have some form of conflict in their past. Not like ours, said Captain Morrison grimly. These beings have never seen anything like human warfare. To them, we must look like monsters. Lieutenant Colonel Baker was thinking about the aliens' weapons, devices designed to calm angry minds rather than hurt bodies. They don't even understand the concept of killing in war. Their peacekeepers are basically therapists with fancy equipment. Ambassador Clark stared at the closed doors of the council chamber. What are they talking about in there? None of them knew that inside the chamber, the Zilani Council was having the most frightening discussion in their species' history. For the first time, they were faced with a species that had not only survived constant warfare, but had turned it into an art form, and now these humans wanted to join their peaceful collective, bringing with them weapons that could destroy worlds, and a mindset that saw violence as a normal solution to problems. The Zilani had a choice to make, and every option seemed dangerous. The emergency session of the Zilani High Council had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from all 12 member species sat in the sacred chamber on the Gel home world, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of fear and confusion. The Harmonizer, an ancient crystal entity that had lived for over 3,000 years, pulsed with dark purple light as it processed the information about the humans. In all its long existence, it had never encountered anything like this. The mathematical analysis is complete, announced Vex 7, a Gel scientist whose crystal form flickered with data streams. Based on their historical patterns, humans have engaged in organized warfare for at least 5,000 continuous years. Shocked sounds filled the chamber. Even the most violent species in the collective had only fought wars for decades, not millennia. 5,000 years? Whispered Merflo, a representative of the aquatic Mirren people. How did they survive? That is the disturbing part, Vex 7 continued. They did not just survive, they thrived. Each conflict made them stronger, more organized, more efficient at warfare. On the water world of Mirren Prime, emergency meetings were happening in underwater cities across the planet. The Mirren had built their entire civilization on the principle that violence was self-destructive. The idea of a species that became stronger through conflict was like learning that fire could freeze water. Show them the weapons analysis, said the Harmonizer. Vex 7 projected holographic data into the center of the chamber. Their nuclear weapons are 10,000 times more powerful than our most advanced mining tools. A single human weapon could sterilize an entire continent. The tree-like Sylvan representative, Ancient Oak, swayed with distress. And they have 10,000 of these weapons? Actually, our count may be low, admitted another Gel analyst. We detected references to weapons in storage, weapons being dismantled, and secret weapons programs. The true number could be much higher. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Karen Murphy sat in the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. The quantum communication from the diplomatic mission had arrived 6 hours ago, and the world's leaders were struggling to understand what it meant. Let me get this straight, said the British Prime Minister. These aliens are afraid of us because we have militaries? General Rick Stevens pulled up classified data on the main screen. It's worse than that. According to the report, they don't even understand the concept of lethal weapons. Their entire military doctrine is based on making people calm down and talk. The Russian president leaned forward. You mean they have no real defenses? None that would stop a determined human force, Stevens confirmed. Their peacekeepers carry what are basically medical devices. They've never seen anything like tanks, fighter jets, or artillery. President Murphy felt a chill run down her spine. What exactly are they planning to do about us? Back on the alien world, Ambassador Clark and his team waited outside the council chamber. They had been waiting for hours and the tension was becoming unbearable. Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Baker said quietly, I've been monitoring their communication channels. Something big is happening. Ships are moving throughout their space. Dr. Wright looked up from her tablet, where she had been studying alien psychology reports. I think we've made a terrible mistake. These beings aren't just peaceful by choice, they're peaceful by nature. Violence literally doesn't make sense to them. What do you mean? Asked Captain Morrison. Think about it, Wright explained. They called nuclear deterrence insane. To them, the idea of threatening to destroy your enemy's cities to prevent war is like solving hunger by poisoning all the food. Ambassador Clark rubbed his temples. So, what are our options? Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors opened. The alien council members filed out, but they looked different now. Their colors were darker, their movements more cautious. Several of them stayed as far from the humans as possible. Clixtor approached slowly, their translator device crackling, with static. Ambassador Clark, we have reached a decision. We're listening, Clark said, trying to keep his voice calm. Humanity cannot join the Zelani Collective under current conditions, Clixtor announced. Your species represents a threat to galactic peace that we cannot ignore. A threat? Clark protested. We came here in friendship. We haven't threatened anyone. The harmonizer's ancient voice echoed through the area. You exist as a threat. Your very nature is violence. You have spent your entire history preparing for war. That's our past, said Dr. Wright. Humans can change. We can learn to be peaceful. Can you? Asked Flowdeep, keeping their distance. Can your species truly abandon warfare when it has shaped everything you are? Lieutenant Colonel Baker stepped forward. What exactly are you asking us to do? Gel-9's crystal form pulsed with nervous energy. Complete disarmament, all weapons destroyed, all military forces disbanded, permanent monitoring stations placed in your solar system to ensure compliance. The humans stared in shock. Baker was the first to find his voice. You want us to completely defenseless? We want you to be peaceful, corrected Clixtor. As all civilized species are. And if we refuse? Asked Ambassador Clark. The silence that followed was answer enough. You would quarantine us? Clark asked. Cut us off from the galaxy? It would be for everyone's safety, said the harmonizer sadly. Including your own. Your species seems destined to destroy itself through violence. Perhaps isolation would allow you to find a better path. Dr. Wright felt her heart sink. You're talking about imprisoning the entire human race in our own solar system. We prefer to think of it as protection, said Rootsinger. Protection for you, and protection from you. Back on Earth, the Security Council was receiving real-time updates from the diplomatic mission. The room erupted in angry voices as the aliens' ultimatum was read aloud. This is unacceptable, shouted the French president. They can't dictate terms to the entire human race. General Stevens was studying tactical reports. The bigger question is whether they can enforce their demands. Based on what we know about their technology, they're centuries ahead of us in some areas. But they have no weapons, pointed out the German chancellor. They don't need weapons like ours, Stevens replied grimly. They could disable our satellites, disrupt our power grids, or simply block all travel beyond Earth's atmosphere. Their technology is so advanced that they don't need to fight us, they can just turn us off. President Murphy looked around the room at the world's most powerful leaders, all of them suddenly feeling very small. What are our options? We could try to negotiate, suggested the Canadian Prime Minister. Find some middle ground. Or we could refuse and see what happens, said the Russian president. Call their bluff. Stevens shook his head. I don't think they're bluffing. These aliens are genuinely terrified of us. Scared beings make desperate choices. On the alien world, Ambassador Clark made one last attempt at diplomacy. Give us time to consider your offer. Humanity needs to make this decision together. Clixtor's wings fluttered nervously. You have 7 of your days. After that, we will assume your answer is no. And then? Then we do what we must to protect the galaxy. As the human delegation returned to their shuttle, none of them spoke. They were all thinking the same thing. Humanity had finally reached the stars, only to discover that the galaxy was afraid of them. What they didn't know was that in the deepest parts of space, something else had been watching the situation develop. The Devourers had been extinct for 1,000 years according to the Zilani historical records. The records were wrong, and the Devourers had been waiting a very long time for the Zilani to show weakness. The arrival of the humans, and the chaos it was creating in the collective, represented the perfect opportunity. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than humanity among the stars. Much worse. The attack came without warning. Admiral Beth Collins was reviewing the human fleet deployment when her communication officer, Danny Rodriguez, suddenly shouted across the bridge of the UES Defender. Admiral, emergency signal from the Zilani. Homeworld. The main screen flickered to life, showing the harmonizer's crystal form, but something was terribly wrong. The ancient being's usual calm purple glow was now flashing bright red with panic. Humans. The harmonizer's voice crackled through static. We need your help. The Devourers have returned. Admiral Collins had never heard of the Devourers, but the terror in the alien's voice was unmistakable. What are the Devourers? A species we thought extinct. They consume everything. Planets, life, entire star systems. They have been hiding, waiting, watching us become weak. The transmission cut to a view of space near the Gel homeworld. Massive black ships, each one the size of a small moon, were moving toward the planet. As Collins watched in horror, one of the ships fired a beam of pure darkness that simply erased part of the planet's surface. How many ships do they have? Collins asked. 50, maybe more. The harmonizer's voice was breaking up. Our peacekeepers cannot stop them. Their weapons only make them angry. Lieutenant Colonel Baker, who was aboard the Defender as military advisor, studied the alien ships on screen. Those aren't weapons designed to stun or calm minds. Those are planet killers. President Murphy's voice came through the quantum communicator from Earth. Admiral Collins, you have permission to assist the Zilani. All human fleets are now under your command. Collins looked at her tactical display. Humanity had 6 battle fleets scattered across local space, about 200 ships total. It didn't seem like much against moon-sized alien vessels. Danny, contact all fleet commanders. Tell them we're going to war. Ma'am, said Rodriguez hesitantly. Are we sure about this? These aliens wanted to disarm us just yesterday. Yesterday the galaxy was afraid of us, Collins replied. Today they need us. Sometimes being feared is the same as being strong enough to protect others. The human fleets moved faster than the Zilani had thought possible. Within hours, ships were jumping through hyperspace toward the battle zone. Captain Morrison, now commanding the Discovery's escort group, watched the tactical displays with grim determination. Sir, called his weapons officer, Tony Martinez. We're getting reports from the Zilani fleets they're being destroyed. Their weapons can't even scratch the Devourer ships. Morrison studied the enemy vessels through long-range sensors. That's because they're trying to disable instead of destroy. Tony, arm all weapons full power. We're going to show these Devourers what human warfare looks like. The first human ship to engage the enemy was the destroyer UES Lightning, commanded by Captain Sarah Walsh. The Devourers had just finished consuming a Myran colony world and were moving toward the next target when the Lightning appeared. This is Captain Walsh to the hostile vessels, she broadcast. You will cease your attack and withdraw immediately. The response was a beam of dark energy that should have vaporized the Lightning. Instead, the human ship's shields held, and, Walsh smiled grimly, they want to play rough. All weapons, fire at will. The Lightning unleashed everything it had. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, railgun rounds, and experimental energy weapons all struck the nearest Devourer ship simultaneously. For the first time in 1,000 years, a Devourer vessel took damage. "Impossible," whispered the Devourer commander aboard the wounded ship. "No species has weapons like this." More human ships arrived, and the Devourers quickly learned they were facing something completely outside their experience. The humans didn't try to disable enemy ships or capture them for study. They simply destroyed them as efficiently as possible. Admiral Collins coordinated the battle from the Defender, watching as human tactics that the aliens had found horrifying proved devastatingly effective against the Devourers. "Collins to all ship," she broadcast. "Remember, these things destroy planets. No mercy, no prisoners. Fight like humanity depends on it." The Zilani forces, retreating from the battle, watched in amazement as the humans engaged the Devourers. Captain Morrison's ship group surrounded a Devourer vessel and hit it from 6 directions at once. Colonel Baker's Marines boarded damaged enemy ships, fighting room by room with weapons the Devourers had never seen. "They fight like demons," observed Clixtor from the safety of an evacuated command ship. "But they fight for us." The battle raged for 12 hours. The Devourers had expected to face the same peaceful species they had known before going into hiding. Instead, they found themselves fighting beings who had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. "Devourer Fleet Command to all ships," came a desperate transmission that the humans intercepted. "These creatures are insane. They ram their ships into ours on purpose. They set off explosions that destroy their own vessels just to damage us more." Danny Rodriguez looked up from his console. "Admiral, I think they're scared of us." "Good," Collins replied. "Fear makes enemies make mistakes." The turning point came when Captain Walsh's Lightning, badly damaged but still fighting, made a suicide run at the Devourer command ship. As she flew her destroyer straight into the enemy vessel's bridge, her final transmission echoed across the battle. "This is for every world you destroyed, you monsters." The explosion took out the Devourer command structure and threw their remaining ships into chaos. The human fleets pressed their advantage, hunting down and destroying every enemy vessel they could find. When the battle ended, 37 Devourer ships had been destroyed. The remaining 13 had fled into deep space, badly damaged and no longer a threat to anyone. The Harmonizer's transmission reached Admiral Collins as the human fleets regrouped. "We owe you everything. You saved not just our worlds, but our entire way of life. That's what allies do," Collins replied simply. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Clark stood once again before the Zilani Council. But this time, the aliens looked at him with very different expressions. "The collective has voted," announced Clixtor. "Humanity will join us not as junior members, but as protectors. You will keep your weapons, your fleets, your way of life. And, in return?" asked Clark. "You defend the peace we could not defend ourselves," said the Harmonizer. "You stand guard against the darkness so that the light can continue to grow." Dr. Wright, watching from the side, realized the beautiful irony of the situation. "We became feared because of our capacity for violence. But that same capacity is what makes us capable of protecting those who can't protect themselves." "Lieutenant." Colonel Baker nodded. "Sometimes the best way to keep peace is to be ready for war." As the ceremony concluded and humanity was formally welcomed into the collective, children from a dozen species played together in the gardens outside. Human soldiers stood guard nearby, their weapons ready but pointed outward, watching for any threat that might come from the darkness between the stars. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous species is exactly what you need when real danger appears. Humanity had found its place among the stars not in spite of what made them feared, but because of it. And in the deep corners of space, other hostile species that might have threatened the peaceful collective quietly decided to look elsewhere for prey. The galaxy had new guardians now, and even the monsters were afraid of them.